Mic lock button is on.
Okay, so this is the video for my secondary channel, and it's the tale of part 1. Now, I wanted to do I wanted to make a 3-part video because I kind of want to, in part 1, I want to talk about in part 2, I want to talk about the dream realm, and in part 3, I want to talk about how R and Freddie Krueger are linked. But if you want to sort of know a bit more on the link of that, check out Shrouded Hand's channel. But I did have the experience is more or less linked to like a sleep paralysis thing per se. I kind of think that every sleep paralysis demon has rules. You know, you go by their rules. And Freddie Krueger, one of his things, right, that's very relevant to this. There's 2 things actually. The one thing, the first thing is the song. Now, I think Wes Craven is a comedian, and he takes the piss out of other people's horrors. I think if you've had the same experiences that I've had, you'll kind of get what I mean. But I love how they take the piss out of subliminal messaging, because it's there, it's right there in front of you. If you listen to the way the Freddie Krueger song is sang, I mean, there's 2 versions of the Freddie Krueger song. There's the hip-hop version, which is the 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. But the actual song that was used in the film is a call. It's Freddie Krueger's call. Now, if he was to use it in real life, I don't think Freddie Krueger would actually come, because that's a character that's made by Wes Craven. And, you know, yeah, if Wes Craven did it, yes, I dare say Freddie would come to him. But it's things, all different things. Now, in this video, because it's 9 o'clock at night, and I know I don't fear R anymore, I'd rather not do the call to R, if you don't mind. I will do a video on this channel, on the second channel, which is just the call to R, if you want to use it. But, anyway, but yeah, the call to Freddie it's because the way they sing it, they don't just sing it, 1, 2, Freddie's coming for you. You know, it's more like 1, 2, Freddie's coming for you. But it's done in those notes. And Wes Craven, like, he didn't study that. That was one thing he didn't study. But, you know, there's people who are into binaural beats will know what I'm talking about here. I hope my iPad hasn't crashed. No? It's locked.
10:47 p.m. The movie was exported.
Oh, right, okay.
The movie was exported to your phone. Okay, button. Back, button.
Oh, sod it. I'll do the R call. I won't do it properly, but I'll do it. There you go. God, can't believe I've done it. few binaural beats people, you'll know that there's certain notes, in fact, binaural beats, there are certain tones. It's like colours. It's like the colours red and grey. The colours that don't really go to the naked eye. And technically, another thing as well is when you're going through your teenage years, right? You have through your teenage adolescent, shall we say, you have certain things like from 15 to say whatever it is, and it just happens, doesn't it? And then when you're a certain age, it goes. Now, it was with me all the way through. It started off as a imitation from the character from Streets of Rage. Now, I have never been scared by video games. The only video games that scared me was Duke Nukem, the bit where he gets stabbed, and what was the other one that scared me to death? There was a video game, I think it was on the Amiga. I can't remember it offhand. But Streets of Rage was a very tame video game for us because we didn't really have. I mean, the beat 'em ups, we got to play them all really, but we didn't really have video games that were over the top violent. That never happened. That wasn't it wasn't a thing, to be frankly honest with you. We didn't have, it wasn't till later on, we looked at things like Splatterhouse 2 and stuff on YouTube, but and obviously, I never watched scary films. I was never a big lover of TV as a kid. I think the scariest thing I saw when I was a kid was I'll tell you what the scariest thing was, but it wasn't on television, and that was later on, and I had a dream about it. In the Stootley Hotel, there used to be a massive mirror opposite the treadmill, and it was huge, and I heard of people like going through the mirror, and I didn't think oh, it's people going, like, they hit the mirror and the mirror smashes. I actually thought that the mirror opened out. So, I said to the woman on reception, I said, has anyone ever been through the mirror? It was the woman on the bar. You know, when you're a kid and you have one of those questions that you should never ask. And this was, I mean, kids weren't really allowed in the gym. We used to sneak in. And the lady behind the till, she said, what do you mean? I said, it's just, has anyone ever been through the mirror? To the side of the mirror kind of thing. Is there something inside the mirror? And she said no. And I was like, oh, okay. It was like, and I asked people in the gym, I said, is there something in the mirror? I hear of people going through the mirror. What's inside the mirror? Because I was like, wow. Anyway, that's another story, but the scary I think the scariest thing that I saw on telly for a time as a kid would have been in, say, a kid's show, very accidentally. But, we used to turn the stuff over if it was too scary, but it was never... The scary stuff I didn't see till I was about 8 or 9, when I watched stuff like the Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy and the Teletubbies, but really there wasn't a moment that I can actually think of that was ever really too scary on telly that we were
10:55 p.m.
That we were exposed to be honest. It was later on, but I was basically a towel. And I was at my nan's house and I didn't know I knew what ghosts were. I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't stupid. I knew that ghosts were dead and they couldn't come alive. But at that age, I thought that ghosts were a myth. They were like, ghosts were fictional. And through that time, I always asked people, are ghosts real? Are ghosts real? Do they exist? And all the rest of it. And anyway, I'll probably leave that till about part 5. So, in the rules of R, I was a male being. Now, I had rules going through over time. It started off where you yawned in a dream. No, that's mentioned there, and I'm starting to yawn. If you yawned in a dream, you'd come. Then if you blinked, and then there was the call. Now, there has been times when I've been in a lucid state where I've sent to certain people. Now, the rules in Freddie Krueger, rule number 1, don't fall asleep, because that'll bring Freddie Krueger straight to you. Rule number 2 is don't ever disrespect Freddie. That's rule number 2. And rule number 3 is accept him. And that's why Nancy, that's why Freddie Krueger doesn't really bother with Nancy, because even though she gets rid of him, so to speak, her mother can't accept him. I mean, if you watch the Freddie Krueger films properly, you'll know what I mean. And all the stuff that happened with me happens in those films, but obviously they take the piss out of it. Even Robert Englund, he takes the piss out of the whole thing. The only thing that, Freddie Krueger 2, I didn't have all that shit that happened. I thought, like, there was one bit where there was a time when I was in the front garden. He wasn't really in the front garden, but in the dream, he was in the front garden, outside the house. And me and my cousin, Sammy, we were in my little toy car, and we pulled my sister Jessica and her friends out, and we pulled Mark, and we pulled, and my Uncle John, he came in the nick of time, and towards the end of the dream, and I used to love, if my Uncle John was in a dream, I was never scared, never ever scared. And that was another thing. In the beginning, there were things that I was scared of. He was scared of, well, he wasn't scared. I think he was. I mean, at my real dad's house, for example, there was a light on at the landing. He didn't like that. There was a cat, one of my dad's ex's cats, used to sleep on the top of the stairs. He didn't like that. Or it didn't like that. And my sister used to sleep in the same room as me, and he didn't like that. There also used to be a light on in the street outside. It didn't like that. And the house was too small. That didn't really bother him, really. That didn't really bother it. And I don't think I came to school except for one time. And that's a bit later on in the dream car. And that was after all of it. It was kind of mellowing down at that point. But, yeah, so I think with R, I never accepted him. In the beginning I did, but I didn't. There was a time when I didn't accept him. And when Nancy in the first Freddie Krueger, she tries to prove that R is real. Because R, even though he was imaginary, he wasn't imaginary. He was between the imaginary world and the real world. Now, explain that. Something from your dream comes out. Now, before I got scared of him properly, because I used to sleep with my light on, and this one night, my light was on, and there was other things. So I'll talk about all the shields first before I talk about this. So the shields were the light on, somebody in the room, the radio on, if somebody was downstairs, if there were lights on in the street, if there was a cats didn't bother it so much. Just my dad's ex's cats did. And if you were in a new place, you know, if you were on holiday, something like that, it couldn't get to you. You know, but there were a couple of times it got to us in the caravan. The worst time was when my granddad Matt passed away, and we were in the caravan, and I appeared in that dream. But before the shields outside the dream world, there used to be shields inside. Like if my Uncle John was in a dream, if I had a friend in a dream, if my mother was in a dream, actually that changed, because she would call, if I was being naughty in the dream world, she would call it, and you know, my siblings would call it. But it's strange because I never really now my sister, she thinks she saw twice. The first time was when we were at Grange Road, and there was a strange dream. It was a lucid dream we had. I actually woke up in my bed, and I did reality checks, because I'd been to the toilet, and I actually went back to my bedroom. And I went to my sister's bedroom in the dream. And I always knew it was a dream, because I went out and I set R on it, and I woke up. Well, I didn't wake up. I was back in my room, but I was in the dream, and I could hear in my sister's bedroom, but I couldn't get to her. Now, she has admitted that she did see That was the second time, actually, because I think the time before that, we slept in the same room together. And there was one time when I had a nightmare, and I got into my sister's bed dead quick. I said, "Jess, let me in. I'm having a nightmare." And I knew I was coming. And I think she knew, because she pulled me into her bed. So I think that was the very first time she saw what I saw. So I think at that time we both saw but I don't think she would ever admit it. And the second time was that time I just told you about. I mean, we were both in the loft at that time. Then the third time, I wasn't in the loft, but she was, and I sent to the loft. The things we brothers do, even in the dream world, we can be little horrors. And I crept up to the stairs, and I floated up, because in the dream realm you can float, and I floated up over the banister, and I just waited. I sat outside her bedroom door, and there she was, and that was it. And I just thought, do your worst. But yeah. Now, there was a time when she was pregnant. I'm not going to tell you with, because this could be a bit personal. But she was pregnant, and she saw R in the dream again. And she said that it was clawing at her stomach. So R had left me, but he wasn't going to leave my sister without one last goodbye. So yeah. And anyway, so a time when R did his worst, and then I'll tell you the fears. Yeah, I'll tell you about them. So I always did, like, in the beginning, I always did reality checks, you know. I'd feel the bed. I'd know if I was in this world or the dream world, as I called it. You know, I'd feel the bed. I'd know if the bed was there. I'd feel like my bunny rabbit or any teddy bears that were near. I felt the wall. I knew the strangest reality check I did was one night I'd get up and feel if the Sega Mega Drive was next to me. So yeah. And I had a teddy bear lamp on my bedside. So I had quite a few things. Then I'd go to bed and know that I was safe. Well, and I mean, I had a dream once, actually, when I was at Vaughan Road, where R sort of came in, where they'd all stand by the light switch. My mum and my nan. No, my mum would stand by the light switch, and she'd say, as soon as the light switch is going out. It's a bit like, you know, in Labyrinth, where she stands by the light switch. Now that happened, you know, my mum would stand by the light switch. My mum and my real dad, they'd stand by the light switch. And they would count down, and that was it. And it was one of those dimmer switches. You would dread the click of the light switch. You knew once the click of the light switch, you were straight into your dream. And, you know, that was it. And the last time that happened, I had this weird, I'll explain what happened. I had this weird toy which I'd borrowed, which I gave back very quickly after this night of horror. My nan was stood by the light switch. I had a dimmer switch in my bedroom, and I would dread the click. Every night I'd dread the click. I knew that something bad was going to happen after that click. And even with the light on, it would just go down, it would click. And that was when the bad stuff happened. Now, this particular night, I had my door closed because my stepdad, it used to bother my stepdad, I don't know, but I used to prefer having the door open instead of closed because I knew nothing could get in my bedroom if the door was open. In the dream world, it couldn't. The door was closed. Anyway, so I used to have the door open every night when I went to bed. I had the door open. I made sure that it was open or slightly ajar. And then I'd sleep then with my light on all the way through the night. And you know, my stepdad would come in and turn stuff off and wander off to bed. But this night, the door was closed. I heard something come upstairs. I thought, is it Dad? Or is it the cat? Because the cat would come up. Oh no. It wasn't Dad and it wasn't the cat. It came up, door crashed open. Happened. I got flung onto my toy box and I woke up on top of my toy box and I got up, I opened the door and I made sure the door stayed open and I went to bed and I went to sleep and I had a fantastic dream after that because I was in the middle of a dream. The dream sort of split. And I dreamt I was going somewhere with school, you know, and the music teacher on the bus, Anne Rosillo, said, "Stephen, we've got to drop you back home on the bus because someone wants to see you." Now that should have been alarm bells, you know, because the connection between things in your dream and things in reality, you know, it's one of those situations. I'll watch it at the time.
11:15 p.m.
Oh, we're all right. So after that, I had night terrors all the way through the end of school. Like I couldn't sleep with my light on anymore. And when I was primary school, that was okay. But when I started secondary school, the night terrors started again. And I had to go, it would start before I went to bed, believe it or not. Anything. I couldn't be on my own upstairs. It was terrible. I was like, I wanted my own time, and I got around that. Later life, I got around that, and I remember just thinking, like, this can't all be too bad. You know, there was one time there was a gate clanging. I said, "Mother, can you go down and check that? That could be our." It was just a gate. And, you know, my mother did all that. She checked there was no monsters in my bedroom. She would go, the ritual would be for 5 nights. She would go up first. Or my dad would go up first. And I loved it when my stepdad would lead me to bed. I say, "Dad, just go." Well, I called him Jim back then. I said, "Jim, just go up and check that is not in my bedroom." He goes, "Oh." I used to love it because I thought, if he goes in, that's it, you know. Because I thought he was the big, brave Jim. I thought, you know, he can deal with no problem. But that sort of never seemed to be the case. And I did learn later on that he was scared. I don't know what of. Probably just the sight of my bedroom, but but I think he was scared. I mean, he's in denial. He would never say, "Oh, I've seen her." But I think he did see her. I think he did see her that night. Must have done. Because the box room was right near the stairs. And my stepdad's kind of not in, he doesn't believe in those sort of things, but I think, you know, people shit their pants, don't they? But I think Rachel and Anne said they saw a glimpse of what they thought was her when they're little. But it was that bad that I had to go and get counselling over it later on. Now, it sort of went for a little bit. You know, we had everybody in the school at one dream. I got dragged everybody into the dream, and we were all fighting our, and there was blood all over the school corridor, but I was going to get his revenge at some form later on. And in school, when I did sleep over at school one night, I heard this car, the dream car I called it, and I only ever saw it once. It looked, the mirrors had razor sharp edges. It was like one of those really old-fashioned things, and there was a nun in the back of the car, and I had to go to the convent, and I would dread, in every dream, I would dread going into the convent. I'd never been in the convent, never, but I knew there was a door that led in, and I used to be scared walking past that door, even in the daytime. It was strange. I thought, what went on in that convent? I believe someone died in there. We saw that in a dream. Yep. I'm coming.
Mic trigger. Mic lock. Finish recording. Mic lock.
Yeah, so ours car, you know, we only saw it when we stayed at school, and it flew, and you know, then we saw R being this black towel sort of figure doing the R sound, and you've always been frightened of being sort of pushed down, but it never really happened. But that's, you know, that's what I want to say on that. Now, R disguised itself into different things, like Freddie Krueger did. It disguised itself into my ex-fiancée that I was going out with at the time, and also R disguised itself as a teacher who I was getting on with at the time. So it did those two very things, and you know, so I think kind of telling you all of this is kind of, you know, importance. I think I lived in a cave which was linked to my bedroom, because where we used to live, we lived in a house where it was attached to another house. So the next door neighbours, one wall would be linked to, say, the next door neighbour's house. And but there was one wall that wasn't linked. And in one dream, the dream door, and that was the thing, before I was waking up, I'd always float from the dream world back into the waking world, That's just how I managed to, bring myself, transition from the dream world into this one. And I remember one dream I had, I actually went and saw R's cave. And R was a dinosaur in the dream. I don't know why he was so kind and, welcome to my home, so to speak. Was that to let me know that the dark lair was near? I mean, it's one of them things. But we're talking about R, really. Now, I've got a little message, so to speak. If you've got a child who's suffering from night terrors, remember, the reality is, it's in your head, but you are experiencing it. It's real. It's not when you sort of have the dream world and the real world, when they both collide, when imagination and reality collides, shall we say, and things feel so real to you. It's like one of the warning signs is, I remember when I was, I'm going to cover this again in the last video, but I remember when I was in year 7, so I'd say it was sort of September 2000, I would have to go to bed at a certain time. I remember I had a spell of going to bed early. I thought, well, if I went to bed at, say, 8:30 in the evening, right? If I went to bed at 8:30 in the evening, I'd catch R out, basically. I could go to sleep before he'd even have a chance to enter my dream. Remember I told you just earlier in the video about the shields, the radio on, the light on, if someone was in my room. But the time shifts. Light, we learnt, was not really, I could still get into your dreams in the daytime. We learnt very late on. We learnt the hard way, you see. Because when I slept at my real dad's one time, and I was very ill, I had a very bad tummy ache, and my real dad's girlfriend at the time let me go to bed in the daytime to sort of sleep it off. And I was sleeping it off, and she was disguised as she wasn't, I won't say her name, but she wasn't a very nice person in real life. She was very nice to me that day. She let me go to bed in the afternoon. She knew me as a person, but I had a dream with her about her in the daytime, and the following day when I got better, the following morning, when I got better, I went down in the dream. We were at the fairground, and we were at the fun house, and there was like this door into this room, and I opened the door, and there she was. She did the R sound, and it was her. And I thought, holy shings, that's gotta be, you know. But seriously, it's funny, you know, you read about you know, the old hag and Kokmar and Kanashibari and all these things that, you know, but sleep paralysis can actually happen in the dream world, and that is so scary. And, you know, I mean, they say, oh, just look under the bed, but I think the thing is to sort of like go outside your house, check it's not outside, because well, if you know about Santa Claus, think these beings, they don't just live in your closet and in your bed. They might live in the fireplace. They might live with it was things like checking the wall. Well, actually, one of the checks I did, one of my little checks, it wasn't a major check, was I would, as I was going to bed, it's a bit silly the way I did this actually, but as I was going to bed, I would make sure that my toy box was shut. As he wouldn't come out the toy box, and he couldn't open the toy box, but I'd make sure my toy box was shut. I would make sure that I had a toy shotgun. Mention that. I made sure that was not under my bed, but I made sure that it was in reaching distance. I wasn't very brave, and I didn't really think much. But the other thing that I had was I had another thing that I did was it's very, very foolish of me, but I would take the towels off the drums, and I only ever did this once, but I removed the towel off because I play the drum, but I would uncover my drum kit, because I thought, right, I want my, you know, I want my drum kit to sound in the night. And so I'd leave the toilet door open, and I wouldn't do the call or anything, but I'd tap the drum and I'd tap the cymbal with my fingers, because I weren't allowed to play the drums after a certain time of night. But I'd tap the drum and tap the cymbal with my finger, and then I would walk out, and that was my routine, and I did that for a little while, and it was like I knew then I was safe, safe as you could be. If I was going to the toilet in the night, I would not shut the toilet door. And there used to be, the boiler would come on. Now, that wasn't really a safety measure, as the boiler used to make this deep sound, this and then that was the boiler sounding. But another thing that I actually did was I would go to the front door. I'd walk to the front door, right? And I would listen. Now, I knew the front door was locked. But another thing I did was I'd go to the back door and I would look out the back door. I would check my window. All these strange things that I did. Check the window. I would there's something else that we did. I'm sure there was. But you see, I never came down the chimney. He came through the wall. And it's very difficult to explain. But you see, in Virginia Street, and this does have a link. In Virginia Street, where it sort of, it actually started before Virginia Street. It started in Vaughan Road, but it started very innocently. It was very sort of, it was just a towel that came over you. But then it actually held me down in one dream. And I think it was the ghost in Nana's house. But I think that experience that kept repeating. And the dream door, I don't want to talk about this too much because I want to the dream door, I want to talk about the dream realm in another episode. But the one thing I do want to say is, where do your monsters come from? And again, if you know anything about Santa Claus is actually linked with a lot of people, why a lot of Christian circles hate Santa Claus. I don't personally, but that's just me. A giver of gifts. I've actually seen Santa Claus. Not in the form of R. You see, and that's another thing as well. I was frightened of Santa Claus. I learnt this. I used to love, Christmas Eve, if I was going to sleep, and it was the only night I probably slept properly, but I was excited. And you dream about riding on Santa's sleigh and all the rest of it. But I think that was a shield, knowing that there was a sleigh riding round the world, and I don't think I liked Santa and his sleigh. You see? But we didn't know how we could frighten them off. We couldn't bring a sleigh into our dreams, and so there must have been a shield there. All these things, you got to think, what's their shield? But think, is there a shield that you can bring into your dream? Is there like a sleigh or something like that? You have to sort of think outside the box. And it takes a while to sort of, I can't lucid dream now. I'm sort of learning it all again now. But, check things like outside. If you've got a chimney, maybe put a cover on the chimney so they can't get in. All that sort of things, There has to be a lot of reassurance. If someone's scared of something going through the chimney, you know, if they're frightened of Santa Claus, they'll be frightened of monsters going through the chimney. So you have to say there's no way they can get in. They can't even get in this way or this way or this way or this way. A lot of, you see, the thing is, these dream entities, a door doesn't necessarily matter. Now, the reason why I checked the wall is because I knew about ghosts. I'm ending the video right here, right? I knew about ghosts, and I'm going to have to, you know, and I knew how ghosts travelled. And so I travelled through a wall. I was no clipping, basically. You know, when he comes in contact with an object, he'll just go straight through. There's no, you know, when something no clips, it goes straight through, and then it changes, and that, you know, that's what happens with a lot of with ghosts, and spirits. That's why you know, a lot of spirits. There's millions and billions of orbs, little tiny things, but you hardly see them because as soon as you have a chance to look, they've no clipped. They've come into contact with an object, and that's why they disappear. But we only see fragments of spirits. You know, they have to have done something. You know, it's what they've left behind, you know. There's a lot of what they do and what they don't do. But anyway, so I used to check the wall, and I knew that there'd be certain places on that wall. There'd be certain portals. Now, in my Nana's house, I'm going to talk about this in another video. The wall that was in my sister's bedroom there was an opening to a portal. There was a few portals. There was not just one, because my nana had used a Ouija board, and we didn't know this till later on, but there was all the walls in my nana's house there was portals in literally every wall in the house. It was the middle of every wall. There was an opening to the portal, so literally they could come in and out. All except for the bathroom wall. The bathroom wall had no portal on it, had no opening. Okay, you know, yes, it's just a bare wall. It's just, you know, a human being couldn't just walk straight through it unless there was a door there. But there was, I did know that in the ceiling, in the box room, there was a portal there. And I was led through it in a dream. So where the dream door opened, you would see the portals. And then when we moved from my nana's house to another house, and we, you know, the other house where we are now, there was 2 portals. There was, and I should have known where ours cave was. That was a portal straight through the wall, because I could go through the wall and into the dream realm. And then I I would go through the wall and into the dream realm. And a lot of people have talked about the wall, but then there was also another portal in my nan's house, but I never found where that was. Because obviously I didn't know about portals. But if I did, I would have wanted to rediscover them. But, you know, but there's a thing. I mean, even if you've never done a Ouija board or your house isn't haunted, there'll still be portals from this world to the dream realm. I'm going to talk about that in another video. So that's where part 2 is going to be. But just think, you know, if you got a chimney breast or a chimney or a fireplace or I don't know, if you've got these are the things that you check. And just go, you know, a lot of people look under the bed and check the closet, but those are the bits you should check before you get into bed. But before you get to that, you know, before you get to the bedroom, think the logical places where the monsters will get in. Yes, the bedroom, the bed and the wardrobe is where they'll hide, but where they'll get in is where you want to think logically. You know, I know there's a lot of people that are frightened about it, and you shouldn't really be frightened of it. When you're kids, you know, you got a 8 or 9 year old kid who's got night terrors, or 10 or 11-year-old who's got night terrors. And it's hard to admit, because you won't admit to someone that you've got night terrors. But then again, it's one of them things. So there you have it, boys and girls. This is part 1 of in part 2, we'll be discussing the dream realm. And we're going to discuss it as an actual realm, as, you know, an actual world of possibility. And yes. And then in part 3, we're going to talk about
11:29 p.m.
Oh.
11:29
You should have
p.m.
been upstairs 10 minutes back.
Bloody hell.
Eh?
I'll go and get my bag.
Edit mode. Dock. Safari. Home. Mail. 1132. App switcher. Boss Jock Jr. Boss Jock Jr. Mic trigger. Mic lock. Finish recording. Finish recording.